This is Deb Scheusung. I don't know if you guys had a chance to meet. She runs Champaign for me. She has before. I've run before. I'm not a standard politician. Probably my biggest concern is the corporate takeover of our politics and our government. And I'm a firm believer that we as individuals need to reassume control and direction of our governance and our country. And I'm not funded by any party. I'm an independent-minded Democrat. I describe myself as I side with the Democrats on the vast majority of issues, but when I disagree with them, I feel free to speak out with regards to my disagreement. I'm a full-time emergency room doctor, went to school, undergrad and medical school here in Champaign, so pretty familiar with this area. You know, when I talk about corporate dominance of our politics and our governance, it touches everything. It seems like no matter what issue people want to talk about, it always goes back to corporatism. And lately, immigration has been on a lot of people's minds. And when I look at immigration, I ask myself, how did we get to where we got? And you know, I think a large part of it lies with NAFTA, which is driven by a lot of large corporations who feed our politicians. They feed our politicians of both political parties. You know, they put NAFTA through and you wind up having some subsidized cheap grain, a large amount of cheap subsidized grain that goes down into Mexico, and you put 8 million subsistence farmers out of work who have little else that they're capable of doing down in Mexico, and they really are left without options. And I'm not absolving people who break laws, but you begin to understand how the thing comes to be. And you look at the money that Tyson Foods and Smithfield Foods funnel into politicians' pockets, again, Democrats and Republicans, and it's no surprise that the enforcers of, so-called enforcers of the law look the other way when bus after bus goes down to Mexico and picks up those farmers to come up and work in the meatpacking plants of Tyson and Smithfield and so on. And so, you know, immigration is just the latest one. I've talked for probably my whole career about healthcare and how the private health insurance companies suck out 35–38% of our healthcare dollars, resulting in a terrible healthcare system. I mean, I can talk for hours on that one. And anyhow, it doesn't have to be. And I've had people say to me, well, you're just one man talking like that. There are millions of people around this country, I'm convinced, who echo what I have to say, who feel the way I feel. I think a large part of the segment of the people that are reaching out into this coffee party movement feel similarly. And our founders put in place the ability of us to rule ourselves. We're gradually losing that, and I think we're near the end now with the Citizens United ruling by the Supreme Court. I think that one must stand up, and stand up quickly, to preserve democracy. It was a radical idea our founding fathers gave us for men to rule themselves, and you know, corporations get painted as evil, and it's not so much that they're evil. The health insurance companies are not evil. It's our mistake in turning over our healthcare system to them. They're not designed to. Their main objective is not to provide healthcare. United Healthcare and WellPoint and groups like that. It's within their mission statement. Their goal is to provide shareholder return and to maximize dollar. And it's our mistake for turning over a healthcare system to a money-making machine, and we need to correct that. And the way to correct that is to have different people in positions of leadership. And so, I would welcome all of your involvement. I know the Coffee Party tries to be partisan, and I respect that. In fact, frankly, I don't know if Deb wants to hear this. I tell people all the time I would be very interested in running as an independent, but again, those career politicians of both political stripes make that nigh unto impossible. You need 20 times the number of signatures to get on the ballot, as they've locked us out, the royalty that is represented in Washington, D.C. And so, you know, if I could put in a pitch for the campaign, I would welcome your involvement in Gill for Congress. I would welcome your involvement in building this coffee party movement. I think this is an important movement, separate and apart from Gill for Congress. I just find it fascinating, though, that it has sprung up at a time where I'm trying to do achieve some of the same objectives. So, I think I'll stop blathering at this point, and I would very much welcome back and forth questions, answers.
What are your thoughts about how can we get money out of politics? I mean, what do you think that's actually, feasible?
Two things in particular. Well, I think it's all feasible. Again, they gave us the tools, but it gets tougher because the more that you let ADM, right, they are, and they become ever more powerful when you give them 32 million more health insurance victims or clients. Two things in particular spring to mind. One, publicly financed campaigns, and I think that one needs to passionately advocate for publicly financed campaigns and passionately work to elect candidates who support that. And second, more difficult, but not as difficult as some would have you believe, is a constitutional amendment. With regards to term limits, I'm a big believer in term limits. That if it was viewed as the service that it ought to be, government service, that you'd have a whole different type of politics and government. And there's different ways to achieve constitutional amendments, but we've done it 27 times in the past. And I find it very interesting that the Tea Party folks, with whom I agree on very little, but the one area of agreement is this concern about the loss of our ability to govern ourselves, this corporate takeover of our country. And so I actively reach out to them, at least along that line. And you get enough people upset. 80% of people in polls, and it's far left, far right, strongly disagree with that Citizens United Supreme Court ruling. People aren't stupid. And we all feel what's going on, and don't feel good about it. And so I think those two items in particular, but there are, I shouldn't be hard on every politician in Washington, D.C. When I get there, I intend to join the Progressive Caucus, and that's 85 people strong right now. It's almost it's more than a third of what you need to put things through the U.S. House, and it's 40% of what you need. And so, district by district, I think that it can be done, and sometimes it appears daunting, but all we can deal with congressionally is Illinois 15, and you guys, assuming you all live here in Champaign County, this is the biggest part of it. 30% of the vote comes out of Champaign. I have a lot of people tell me, again, career politicians, they gerrymander these maps, both sides, to protect incumbents, Democrats and Republicans. And I've been running for this seat since December '02, essentially. I started then for the '04 election. I formally ran in '04 and '06, and people told me, you can't win. They drew that 2-to-1 Republican. And the Democrat typically gets 32%. And through the hard work of myself and hundreds of volunteers and people like Deb, we got up to 38% the first time, and then we got up to 43% the second time. So it's doable. I have journalists, people from media say, you only got a third of the vote. No, I got 43. We cut that standard 35-point loss, that 68 to 32% loss, to 57-43 roughly. And so it is not undoable. I wouldn't run if I didn't think I could win. It's too much. It's a second full-time job for me, and it's exhausting. And I wouldn't do it just to make a statement. I think making a statement is important, but I'm getting old and tired, too old and tired to just make statements. So I think anything is feasible. Call me a dreamer, call me naive, but a lot of things have changed in this country for the better. Through the centuries. We used to have slaves, we used to have women working hard and having no voice with respect to their governance, and those walls come down.
Just out of